Perspective of parents, what they think about schools reopening this morning. My name is Brenda Zeda-Radido. Always a pleasure having you tuned in to KTN News Center. So straight away, let's get into this. Matters Education, where the CS for Education, Professor George Magoha, has this morning toured the Olympic Primary School in Kibra as education officials around the country assess the first day of the resumption of learning. Now, the government has increased the capacity of desks from the initial 250,000 shillings to over 500,000 shillings. Now, the government has also released 4.6 billion expected to reach the accounts of all public and primary schools as capitation grants to facilitate implementation of health protocols, including supply of running water, hand washing, soap and sanitizers.
This soap, when I say this soap is better, good morning teacher. Endelea na kazi yako. Mimi nakagua watoto yangu tukufu kama wamevaa mask.
The first one is catch. Catch. Can you catch?
Why did I start here? This is the largest primary school in the country with 4,700 kids. And therefore they require a little bit of special attention. The second point is that it is within the slums. So we are going to give it a little bit more support in terms of ensuring that the children are being taught. But I think you went into the classroom. Apart from overcrowding, everything else is normal. Every child is properly masked. Most of those masks they are wearing were provided by the government of the Republic of Kenya, together with our collaborators. In terms of ensuring that we don't have a crisis here, even though we had already delivered the economic stimulus package desks, I have decided, because I think the president gave me those powers, to vary one or two things, that we shall give another 140 desks to this school. I am going to pick some of the desks which were ready, which were meant for another school, which may not be having a very tight problem like this. 70 of them will be here today, and during the course of the week, a balance of 70 will have been fabricated and brought. Then we shall fabricate and take to the other person that I was talking to. Otherwise, you have seen with your eyes that if we work together, the spirit, when you look at the spirit of the body and spirit of the teacher, the body and spirit of the children, do they require encouragement or discouragement? Let us encourage them. That's all I can say for now. We may not be perfect. There are very many children here. If water becomes a problem, we are on standby to ensure that they have water, so that they are able to wash their hands when they come out. And I think that's all.
Was it considering that there are many parents who will be seeking to have their children come to the school with an already high...
This school will not be available, because you can see for yourself that it's 7,000, it's 4,700. So this one, even though it is popular, it's not likely that they'll take many children. There are many other schools around that we will make sure the children go to. You can see for yourself that I've ordered a variation of shifting of desks, which were supposed to go to another school this morning, to come here. And I will then go to the school where the desks were supposed to go, so that I am fair to those children also, to be sure that their pressure is not as much as the one here. Here is Inatosha.
Maybe that's a last one.
Ask me things related to this.
You know, in Kibera we have a high population of pupils here, and recently Railway Corporation demolished some structures along the railway. Maybe as the CS for Education, have you followed up the fate of those students who were demolished, whose schools were demolished, and maybe the fate of those who are affected by COVID-19?
Your question is not fair, because when we demolish the building of the parents, it is the parent's duty to bring the child to school. If a child is brought here and there is space, we shall take. If there is no space, my people, where is the sub-county director of education? We have somebody who is here who will ensure by constitution that that child is admitted where there is a vacancy. We are trying to avoid a situation where a popular school like this one is overrun by children so that some of them can sit down. So you don't have to worry unless you have a specific case. If you give us details, we shall go to where the rubber meets the ground. I think because what you're asking is basically a story. It is one of those stories people talk about. So if you have a child who has gone to a government school and cannot be placed in that school and another one, then tell us and we shall act. I must go now because I want to ensure that the desks are brought here and that I also go to placate the other school. We have to do all this together because you don't even have to reach me. You as a journalist, if you know somebody, you can direct the child to come to a school. If it is too full, you advise that child to go to the next school. Senor? Okay. Thank you very much.
Right, that is the TAF talking. Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha talking very tough during this time of school reopening, saying the government is doing all it can to ensure that both teachers and students, and actually students and pupils, are safe once they've reported back to school. Let me just recap for you some of the things that the CS talked about. One of the things he talked about is that Olympic Primary School is one of the public schools here in the country that has the largest numbers when it comes to pupils. It has 4,500 pupils, saying that the school might not be able to take in new pupils who might want to, go back to actually be enrolled in that school, because so many parents we've seen saying that they can no longer afford school fees at private schools, so they want to take their children to public schools. He says that at least 140 desks will be given to that school within this week because they require more desks so as to enable that social distancing. But even as much as talking about taking 140 desks to Olympic Primary School, remember last week the CS said the teachers ought to be creative in terms of social distancing, use trees, tree shades as a way of just trying to avoid, the spread of COVID-19 in schools. It is a developing story. Our reporter Shadrach Miti has been working with the CS. He'll be joining us later on just to give us more updates on what the CS has said, where he's been to after Olympic Primary School. But for now, I need to get the voice of the parents, through the Kenya National Parents Association chairperson, Nicholas Maiyo, is joining us from a city center studio. Mr. Maiyo, good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Good morning, too.
Thank you so much for joining us here on KTN News Center. So there is a voice by some parents of concern. Yes, they're happy, the children are going back to school, but they have two major concerns. The cost of going back to school in terms of getting their children sanitizers, getting their children face masks, and also, just ensuring that really our children safe. That is another concern that the parents have as children go back to school today after 10 months of being at home.
Yeah, actually, it is every parent is concerned that their children are safe. And I'll tell you, we've had our children at home for the last 9 months. And if you compare when you opened recently of partial reopening, the grade 4, class 8, and form 4, we found out that school is safer than our homes. The reason is, we don't stay at home. Parents move out of their homes to look for livelihood, others go to work. So in school, they have programs. They have teachers on duty. And we did, as Parents Association, we did a survey on our own. We told our people to visit at least 10 homes. And the visit yielded, out of the 10 houses, the 10 households, only 2 of them had either a guardian or a parent. But 8 of the 10 households had no parent or guardian. Children were on their own. And imagine, from 8 to 6 in the afternoon or in the evening, when children are on their own, imagine what they will do. That is why we lost so many of them to teenage pregnancies, child labor, drug and substance abuse. As we reopen on today, we are happy. 99.9% of our parents are very happy because schools have opened, and the challenge we have is not as much as when our children are at home, because virus COVID-19 is everywhere. It's in the village, it's in town, it is in the hotels, it is in the churches, everywhere. So for us, for our children to be safe on COVID, we know the government has released 4.9 billion for our primary schools to cater for sanitizers and water points. 14.9 for high school to cater for the same. So we are happy and we are thanking the government for that, because the money was timely. When our children are opening school, they release the funds in time.
All right, just stay with me, Mr. Nicholas Maiyo, just stay with me. I need to bring in my colleague Shadrach Miti, who's been making morning tours with Education CS Professor Jude Maguha. Miti, I understand you're still at Olympic Primary School, so the CS made a visit to that school in the morning and talked about very important things, providing more desks, paying special attention to that school, and probably seeing that the school might not be taking other children. They might not be having intakes due to the large number that school has. But just apart from the CS's visit, can you talk to us more about what you've seen on the ground?
Well, maybe to begin with, let us begin from the Cabinet Secretary's statement on Saturday, when he made it very clear that no one should come to any school this Monday when schools reopen expecting to see a 1 meter apart sitting arrangement. That has always been the call. In the words of the CS himself, he made it very clear that anyone who visits any school beginning Monday, you will not see any 1 meter sitting apart, but children will be sitting closer, closer than 1 meter, and that is exactly what is happening. And that has been occasioned by the fact that we've not had a clear infrastructural readjustment to suit the situation, even as we reopen our schools going forward. And so when we try to tour around with the CS, that's one of the factors that we saw, and it did not come to us surprisingly, because the CS himself had made it clear that that would be happening. And so we have seen that. But remember, one thing that the CS made it very clear, and he has insisted on it this morning, was that every child must be well masked to ensure that we are minimizing any danger that may occur or may be posed by them being closer than it is expected. And remember, even when the CS spoke about this issue on Saturday, he made it very clear that the same standard they will be applying in the public schools, the same will be expected with the private schools. So it's expected that even in private schools, perhaps managers and school proprietors may not be under so much pressure to make sure that their learners are sitting within the 1 meter sitting apart arrangement. But one other key thing, and I have seen you have the chairperson for the Parents Association there with you, is that outside the gate to this school, this Olympic primary school, we have parents there. And those parents have come with their children here. They're expecting to have admission of their children to this school. But we are not so sure whether that will take place, because already when we asked the CS about the same in the morning, he said that anybody who is planning to bring their children at Olympic primary school, it will not be happening, because the school is already...
Right, so that is a reporter, Shadrach Miti, who's been keeping tabs with what is happening on the ground at Olympic Primary School. You just heard it from him, what he said. Several parents are flocking that school just as a way of seeking, for admission. But then the CS says that, that school can't get most children, more pupils, because it's actually full with 4,000, let me just give you the correct figure, 4,500 children actually admitted in that school, so there's no space. But then Shadrach Miti will be giving us more details later on. So let me bring in the voice of the parents to the chairperson. Nicholas Maiyo of the Parents Association. And Mr. Maiyo, let me just pick it up from what my colleague, Shadrach Miti, has just said. You know, some parents still flocking public schools for admission. Case in example is, you know, Olympic Primary School, where the CS said that school may not be able to admit more pupils. I don't know what you have to say about that, because this is the cry of parents. We need our children to be admitted in schools. We're in private schools, but we can no longer afford school fees. And the nearest school is Olympic Primary School.
Yeah, we are aware of that challenge. We know most of the private schools were closed down because of the COVID-19. But we want all our children to be admitted anywhere, be it private school or public school. For those parents who want their children to be admitted in public school, it is their right. And maybe if Olympic Primary has enough children, we have other schools which have lesser children. But children belong to both public and private school. No child is private and no child is public. All our children belong to either private school or public school. We have children, parents have children in public school, and they also have children, their siblings, in private school. So if a school is closed down in private school, we have a right to take our children to public school. And under the Basic Education Act, it is our obligation as parents to admit our children to public schools. And that is why those parents are seeking admission of their children in Olympic Primary. Because maybe Olympic Primary, according to them, does very good academically. Mm-hmm. And that is why they are flocking there. So it is their right. But
Mr. Maiyo, it's good you're talking on behalf of the parents. You're saying it's their right to have the kids taken to that school. But you had it from the CS himself. The school has 4,500 pupils, so there's no space. What conversation are you going to have with the Ministry of Education?
I know of Olympic Primary. We were there when the CS was giving out masks. I know the school has almost 5,000 plus children because of 100% transition. And you know, the environment and the location where the school is. So what I would say is, I would request those parents to take their children to any other public school. Because we have, in the neighborhood of Olympic Primary, we have other public primary schools.
Right.
Which have less children, yes.
All right. And then now let's bring in the nightmare that some parents are having. They cannot afford to pay school fees. Probably they lost their jobs, you know. Probably they lost the breadwinner due to COVID-19, someone who's paying the school fees. And here there are some schools that are asking parents to pay the full school fees before their children are enrolled for the first term of 2021.
This is the second term of 2020, and we still have the fees guideline of 2020. As parents, we are aware that we have not yet finished the year 2020 in our school calendar, and the fees guideline from the Ministry of Education is still valid for 2020. There is no increment, and we wouldn't like any principal to give us some extra levies. So what I will say is, the minister said, all our children will be admitted in all our public schools, whether they have school fees or not. On our side as parents, it's our obligation actually to pay, because we know if you don't pay, our children will go hungry because they have to be fed. We have to look for uniform for them. We have to avail face mask as uniform for them. So it's actually our obligation as parents.
All right.
I will only urge those parents who don't have school fees right now to go individually and meet the preschool principal and agree on how they will clear those fees arrears going forward.
All right. But then I tend to agree with you, Mr. Maiyo, when it comes to explanation, at least that parents need to have a private conversation with the school heads when it comes to matters of school fees. But the reality is that as much as you're talking for this, asking those parents to have that conversation, some parents, some schools have said, you still have to pay that school fees. Hence my question, what is the Parents Association doing or planning to do, or probably asking the government to cushion some of these parents?
Actually, we had a very big meeting in Naivasha. We had all our national officials from counties and sub-counties. And you know that our structure as Parents Association is derived from the school level, sub-county, county, and national. In our meeting in Naivasha, that concern of school fees was raised. And we agreed that we will request the government to give us a 2-month grace period for us to clear that fees. Because the fees actually is our obligation. So we want each person, each institution, be it government to do their work. As parents, we do our work. And our school institution principals also does their work. So the only thing we will do is request the government to give us a grace period of 2 months to clear the fees balances that each parent has.
All right.
On those parents who are affected by COVID-19, because we know that they exist, because the COVID has been around for the 9 months. We want their children to be in school, and that report to go to the principal, and the principal to know that this list of parents who have been affected by COVID, and we will do on our part as Parent Association.
All right. All right. Mr. Maiyo, I'll still request you to...
And request the government to do something.
All right. I still request you to stay with me because I need also to cross over live to some of my colleagues on the ground to just painting for us a picture of what it is like. So I bring in my colleague Emmanuel To, who's at Kilimani Primary School here in Nairobi. And Emmanuel To, good morning. So it is just a question of...